So when a private equity fund is raising money, not every investor gets in on the ground floor. But how do you keep things fair when some people's money has been working for months while others are just now getting into the game? Today, we're going to break down the absolutely critical accounting processes that make it all work.
Let's make this simple. Imagine you and your friends pool your money to buy something, and it starts making money right away. A month later, another friend wants in. How do you let them join without it being totally unfair to you and the original crew who took all the early risk? Well, that is the core problem we're talking about.
And in the world of high-stakes private equity, this whole late arrival scenario has a name. It's called a subsequent close. It's a totally standard practice, but man, it creates a huge accounting headache that, if you get it wrong, can lead to some serious unfairness between partners. So let's get into how the pros solve this.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start by really nailing down this late investor problem. Then we'll look at two processes that are, frankly, often overlooked, but are designed to solve it. We're going to compare equalization and rebalancing, figure out what their ultimate goal is, and then we'll talk about why getting this right is so important for both investors and fund managers.
So, let's formally lay out the issue here. Subsequent closings, they're absolutely essential for raising money, but they really do throw a wrench into the whole accounting machine of the fund.
The issue is pretty straightforward when you think about it. The first investors, the first close folks, they've already put their cash on the line. The fund manager, that's the general partner or GP, has already put that money to work. It's funded investments, it's paid fees, it's been exposed to market risk. The new investors haven't done any of that yet. So how in the world do you level the playing field?
Well, the solution lies in two pretty sophisticated, but like I said, often neglected processes: equalization and rebalancing. And even though they sound kind of similar, they are critically different.
Now here's what's really interesting. This is the first key difference. Equalization is almost always spelled out right there in the fund's legal Bible, the Limited Partnership Agreement or LPA. It's a legal requirement. Rebalancing, though, that's a pure accounting necessity. And because it's often not in the LPA, you'd be surprised how many fund accountants just neglect it. And that can have some major consequences down the line.
So while both of these processes are aiming for fairness, they get there using very different mechanics. And understanding these differences, well, that's the whole ballgame.
Okay, here's a little head-to-head comparison for you. You can see they both share the same why. It's all about making things fair, but their triggers and their scope, completely different. Let's break down the two most important distinctions right now.
First, let's talk about what kicks these things off. For equalization to even happen, you need two things. A new investor has to join in a subsequent close, and the fund has to have actually called for cash, made a drawdown in between those closings. Rebalancing is much broader. It's triggered just by the fact that there's a new closing. It doesn't matter if any new cash has been called or not.
And this is the crucial point, the scope of what gets adjusted. Let me give you a quick example. Let's say investor A is the only one in the fund, and they put in $100 for an investment. A month later, investor B joins, committing the same amount. Equalization just handles the cash. Investor B pays $50 to investor A, so now they're both in for $50 cash each. Simple. But what if that investment is now worth $120? That's where rebalancing comes in. It goes through and reallocates every single account in the fund's main books, the general ledger, to reflect the new 50-50 ownership. So now the books show that both A and B own $60 of that asset. See the difference? Equalization settles the cash, rebalancing settles the ownership of everything.
So despite all their different mechanics, both of these processes are working toward the exact same fundamental goal. So what is it?
It all boils down to this one simple, really powerful idea: to make the fund's economics look as if every single investor, it doesn't matter when they actually signed the paperwork, was there from the very beginning, from day one.
So, to put a finer point on it, just think of equalization as the cash catch-up. The new guys pay in to make the early investors whole for the capital calls they already funded. It's all about making sure everyone has the same percentage of their commitment called down.
And rebalancing, that's the ownership reset. It goes way deeper. It goes through the fund's entire history, every single gain, loss, fee, and expense, and reslices the pie across all the partners according to their new ownership stakes.
Look, I know this can feel like we're deep in the accounting weeds, but getting this wrong can cost people millions of dollars. So let's wrap this up with why this all matters so much and give some key advice for both the investors, the limited partners, and the fund managers, the general partners.
For all you investors out there, the LPs, here is a critical warning. You might think that a clean audit from a big fancy firm means your personal capital account is perfect. That is not a safe assumption. For some really complex legal and risk reasons, auditors typically do not sign off on the accuracy of these specific investor-level numbers.
So what can you actually do about it? Well, the advice is pretty clear. You've got to be proactive. During your due diligence, before you invest, ask the fund manager very specifically about their procedures and their systems for handling these allocations. You need to feel confident that they have reliable tools to get this stuff right.
And for the general partners, the people actually running the fund, the message is just as clear. Do not overlook this. You have to sit down and think through the consequences of getting allocations wrong for your specific fund. Doesn't matter if you use fancy software or a spreadsheet, you have to test it and make absolutely sure that it works. Otherwise, you could be facing some serious embarrassment or even worse, major financial disputes.
And all this leaves us with one final thought. When you're managing hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars from partners who all expect and deserve to be treated fairly, are these complex accounting processes just minor details, or are they the very foundation of trust and integrity in the fund?